Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we're gonna talking about kind of broad but it's also specific topic is which one is better to fix our economy, like specifically which policy is better to fix our economy. So if you're like not familiar with this area, like this particular economy area, you might be thinking, oh, what are you talking about? Are we going to apply any policies to our economy? Well, exactly what we're gonna do today. So we're gonna talk about specific two policies today. What first one is the monetary policy, and for this one, I'm just gonna say monetary policy is better. And another one is fiscal policy. And if you're like currently in a macroeconomics class or like any of the economies classes, you might be familiar with these two terms. But if you're not familiar with this, I'm just gonna introduce to this really quick. So a fiscal policy is basically what the government spending increases or tax cuts increase the demand. And the monetary policy is basically the quantity of money increases demand. So the fiscal policy, you can just think about like this is what the government did to fix our economy, like whether the economy is currently in a recessionary gap or an inflationary gap. The government wants to take some actions to fix our economy. So the government can take actions by doing two ways. First is if it's in the inflationary gap, the government spending can be decreased and they can raise the taxes. Because think about that, like currently you are producing like higher than what you can potentially doing, like you're above the full employment level, which means the economy is in overheat. So you don't want to do it like in a long term. So you have to do something like to raise taxes and to decrease government spending, which cause the aggregate demand curve to shift to the left. Which causes the economy to back to the long run equilibrium. And if the economy is in a recessionary gap, then the government can take actions by doing increase government spending or decreases the taxes. Because like thinking about it in another way is that if the economy is currently like not employed as many workers as it can, then the government wants to let the economy like to hire more workers and to increase their productivities or anything, or the like a invent more technologies or something like that. So they're gonna doing that by decrease the taxes and increase the government spending. Okay, so that's basically for the fiscal policy. I don't know if it's like makes some sense to you at least, but I'm gonna shift to monetary policy right now. So monetary policy, in other hand, is kind of complicated. There like basically there's four ways to doing the monetary policy. The first one is open market operations. So basically just like the government sells or buys bonds. So if the economy is currently like doing bad, then the government have to buy bonds, like to buy bonds from the people and give money to the people by increasing the monetary supply and shift the system back to the economy back to the long-run equilibrium. And another way is the discount rate, the change in discount rate. So if the discount rate is increased, then the money supply is gonna decrease. So it's gonna inverse related to the money supply. So basically like if you're not familiar with the terms, definitely check other videos in the YouTube, or I probably will record more videos about these specifically topics, because right now I'm just gonna summarize them really quick, like a really general, not specific. Let's just give you a broad idea for this. If you're really still confusing about it, like what we're talking about, then definitely check other videos. And so the third one is the reserve the third one is the reserve rate. So this is also gonna inverse related to the money supply. And the third one, the last one but not least, is the interest rate on returns. So this one is also inversely related to money supply. Okay, let me just check really quick. Yep. Oh, I'm sorry. It's not the reserve rate. It's the reserve ratio. I'm sorry. Okay, so reserve ratio, discount rate, open market operations, and the interest rate on reserves, not returns. I'm sorry. Okay, so these four terms are all gonna shift the money supply. By shifting the money supply, it can change the whole economy system, and this is basically the things that the monetary policy usually use. And then, okay, so by recap all of these terms, we're gonna dive deep into our big things. Okay, so let's talk about monetary policies first. So what things like can make monetary policy better than fiscal policy when talking about fix our economy? So first of all, it's more scientific. And which means this is more accurate. And you may like think what? So let me just explain it. So more scientific means like the Fed, the Federal Reserve can use like the targets to change the range of the discount rate and the interest rate on reserves, like the range of the whole economies. So they can use targets, like also they can use math for this, and they can build models to this to to simulate what will happen to our real world by just looking at some like fiscal models and to simulate that. So this is definitely more scientific and more accurate, which means that the result from this is probably more close to the real world, like what the real world will be for this. And then the second thing for this, think about that. Okay, so there's no debt actually. So because in the fiscal policies, it's actually working by, okay, so remember what I talked before, like the fiscal policy is basically what the government is going to raise taxes, like raise or decrease taxes and raise or decrease government spending. And so they're basically just going to give monies to the economy or not. So where is the money come from? There's definitely should a location or a place for the money. So the money is actually come from the loanable funds market. And basically when the government is gonna borrowing money from the loanable funds market, it will accumulate to our debt, like the country debt, national debt. And so therefore if the debt is gonna still increasingly accumulate, and then the government probably will not have the ability to pay them all back, or at least they will put a very hard burden on the government. So it's definitely not a good thing. And if you are doing the monetary policy, then the good thing is that there's no debt. So the Fed is just gonna create monies, they're just gonna facing a lot of machines and they're ta and the new monies is gonna generate it. It's a miracle, right? It's magic. Okay, so there's no debt for this, definitely. So basically, just make monies. And also, there's no crowding out. So the crowding out is kind of so just think about in a loanable funds market, this is the real interest rate, and this is the quantity of loanable funds, and this is the demand, this is the supply. And when the government is gonna borrowing money from the loanable funds market, it will increase the demand for the loanable funds market. But when it increases the demand for loanable funds market, it will increase the real interest rate also. And for thinking about that, the real interest rate is inversely related to the investment. So when the real interest is going up, then the investment will going down, which means like for the private companies or like the private investors, they will decrease their investment by because of the increase in real interest rate. So even though we see increase in demand for this, it's actually like it's actually in the real like aggregate ADS model. So this is the aggregate demand, this is the short run aggregate supply. And when the demand is going to increase, the aggregate demand is going to increase, but because like the less investment is causing, so it's going to really actually going to shift back a little bit. So it's right like a put right here. Like this is the final curve we are landing on. So it's definitely not a very good thing because the main goal for the government for borrowing money to increase the aggregate demand is to let the economy to recover itself, but it actually doesn't turns out very good, or at least not as good as they expected for. So no crowding out, definitely. And the third one is that it will be more faster and more efficient, because thinking about that way, like when you're pretending you're the Fed, like you're facing in a whole bunch of machines, and when you're creating the monies, you're just gonna like what I said before, like ta ta ta, and then new monies come out. It's like the and you really don't have to do anything, like you really don't have to wait for like a like the lag effects to occurs. Like there are probably like a operational effect lag effects, like the administrative lag effects, like or you really don't have to wait till all of these things. Like you are the real manager for this, so you control all of the money creation part. So that's great. And the fourth things is that it's actually less political, because think about that, like the monetary policy is what like the Fed is controlling all of it. But if you're applying fiscal policies, then the main focus is the government. And the government is actually like a, especially if it's near the president's election period, then they're probably gonna be have some like a, not probably, they're definitely gonna be have some political orientations for the people's, like because different peoples have their different perspective on different presidents. So the main like the real decision may not be so accurate or not be so applicable to the real world. So that's definitely a problem for the fiscal policy, but it's not a problem for monetary policy, because Fed is not like, even though it has like a kind of like a close relationship with the government, it when they're making the decisions, they are the first decision maker, so they don't really have to like listening to others' opinions really much. Like they are controlling all of everything. So less political is definitely good for the monetary policy, and it's also a benefit, a huge benefit for it. And speaking of that, it's also good at fixed inflation. Because of the less political, right? Because like the everything is faster, and everything happens really quickly. Like it's really good to fix inflation. Okay, so these are the basically the things the monetary policy is good at. Let's shift our focus to the fiscal policies. So the first one is, I'm gonna talking about the cyclical asymmetry first. So this term is actually like complicated, like even though it's complicated for me actually also, but the term, like the definition for it is actually like it describes any large imbalances in economy factors occurring for purely cyclical reactions by a market or nation, and that may include like employment rates, like debt retention, interest rates, balance strengths, or like stock market imbalances, like all of that things. So like think about that. Like the economy is like when you're walking like with a dog and you're holding a string, like the string is on like is on the dog. So it's actually the economy, like when you're applying fiscal policies, it's good at pushing the string. And specifically is that the fiscal policy is good at to solve the problems when the economy is bad, but it's not good at solving problems when the economy is good, because when it's good, like nobody wants to have higher taxes, right? But when it's bad, like more people wants to have money, so it will definitely have a huge difference when you're facing like two different situations. But anyway, like the cyclical asymmetry is very good at this. Like the fiscal policy is really good at this, which causing the cyclical asymmetry, and they're gonna just pull money into the system. Like they're definitely they're just like borrowing money. It's like the government spending. They're when you're like don't have that much money, they will just go into the loanable funds market and they will like borrowing monies. They will pull money out of the system, or and then turn into like put back into the real economies, and they're doing that like again and again and again. So they're definitely good at this. And then the fiscal policy can increase the aggregate demand for this, and also like the opposite way is also true. So also for the second part, another thing is that there's not zero bound. So the zero bound is that when thinking about like the required reserve ratios for currently United States, it's actually zero. So the the bank really don't have to hold any of the monies in their banks. They can just loan them all out into the system and let it like flow into the circular flows and creating new monies, increasing money supply, increasing the whole like economy's operations. But this actually is gonna be a kind of a problem, because when you're like a zero bound, there's actually not so many solving solutions for you like to this, because you're kind of stuck in that kind of situation. Because thinking about in the ample reserve market, the graph, when you're like really in the lower bound of the flat lines of that, you really the only thing you can do is by changing the interest rate on reserves. And there's like the four factors for shifting the money supply, like the open market operations, the discount rate, the interest rate on reserves, like it's except interest rate on reserves, and also the reserve ratios. You really can't do it all, like except the third one, right? I don't know, I kind of lost my memory. Oh, but never mind, this is actually not a huge benefit for the monetary policy, but it's a benefit for the fiscal policy. Because when you're facing the you can like borrowing money like from the loanable funds market infinitely. Like you can borrow as much as you want, and then you can spend as much as you want. So the government really don't have to listen to anyone. Like if they see some bad things happening, they can really just do some decisions at once and immediately, and changing the whole systems. And so it's really good at fixed unemployment for this. So summarize what I just said before. So this is good at fixed unemployment. So like I said before, like fiscal policy is very good to solving problems when the economy is in a bad situation. But in the opposite way, it's not really good at doing that. But for the monetary policy, it's kind of like opposite of that, like opposite of fiscal policy. It's really good at solving problems when it's in an inflationary gap or like inflation situation for the economy. But when it's in the unemployment situation, it's probably better to doing the fiscal policy. So these two are the biggest takeaways for this lesson. So yeah, so basically that's what I really want to talk with you guys today. I don't know if it's really like a lesson. I'm just like basically talking what I know from my class, like what I know from my learnings. Like these are all the things that we can definitely do when we are applying these policies to fix our economies. And so, yeah, basically that's it. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a great day.